Hello, everybody. Before we jump into the presentation, we're going to put up a few poll questions on your screen. You could just take a minute to answer each of these, and we will begin the presentation shortly. Thanks. Okay, thank you very much. My name is Sue Brzee. I'm the marketing director here at 2W Tech, and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar on Epicor's advanced printing. If at any time during today's presentation you have questions, please send them through the question box on your screen. There will be an interactive Q&A at the end, and we'll try to get to all your questions then, time permitting. For those of you who might not be familiar with 2W Technologies, we are a full-service technology firm that specializes in end-to-end solutions for the manufacturing industry. We are both a Gold Epicor partner as well as a Gold Microsoft partner. For more information on our products and services, you can visit us at 2wtech.com. The presenters for today's webinar are going to be Dave Thomas, who is the Director of Epicor Services here at 2W Tech, as well as Mark Jameson, our CEO and President. I'll now turn it over to Mark to get the presentation started. Mark?
Hey, thanks, Sue. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Just a little aside, it's not really on topic, but we did kind of have a milestone today at 2W. Our cloud services practice, we spun up our first Azure instance in China this morning. So we can realistically say that we are supporting instances globally. But today we're going to talk about advanced printing, and as Sue said, joining me is Dave Thomas, who's the Director of Epicor Services today. Dave has a ton of knowledge and years of experience with Epicor, and I think this is going to be something that everybody's going to walk away with a little bit of something. I just wanted to spend a couple of quick seconds here talking about the history of advanced printing within Epicor. So a lot of you may be familiar with that product, APM, or Advanced Print Management. For years, through Vista 8 and Vantage 8 and Epicor 9, that was the only way to move electronic and to do advanced printing and to send out emails and that kind of thing through Epicor. You had to implement it. It needed another server. It was tough to maintain. It was tough to set up. But in E1, in ERP 10.1, Epicor introduced advanced printing as an actual built-in module to Epicor. There was no special installation. It's relatively simple. It's very powerful. And now, as we're moving through the advancements in the 10 version, we also have a DocStar integration, and Dave's going to show you all that today. The requirements to use Epicor Advanced Printing, you've got to be running 10.1 or later. You need to have an email server, an SMTP server. Your Epicor instance has to be able to see that server. And what you're going to see is that advanced printing can work for anybody who wants to automate emailing or printing of documents. So, Dave, advanced printing, fairly easy to set up, very powerful to do. I'm going to make you the presenter. You're on mute, Dave.
Okay.
So anyway, easy to set up, powerful to use. Why don't you take us through its basis?
Okay, sounds good. Well, we're looking at Epicor 10.2.100, which is not the latest and greatest, but it's fairly current. And we'll use this as our demo platform for today. First, I want to show a few of the background setups that are required to support this function. It's pretty simple, but we'll go through them right now. In company maintenance, if you notice at the upper right-hand corner of the screen, SMTP server, localhost, port 25, that will be different settings, of course, in different systems, but the main point is you do need an SMTP email server that's accessible from Epicor. You may already have that. This is the same setting that's used for global alerts, BPM alerts, and other email functions from within Epicor. If you don't have it set up, this is something your system administrator or whoever performs that function could help you with. The example we're going to be using today is an accounts receivable invoice. So, of course, that is something that's linked to a customer within Epicor. Now, this function can be used to email purchase orders, quote documents, sales order acknowledgments, and other things. So this is just an example, but the power of this function really is that it can pull data directly out of the Epicor database. And for a customer, you have emails residing in different locations. There is a primary email address, if you notice at the lower right-hand corner for the customer. I'm using Dalton as an example. But within contacts, the more logical place for an invoice to be sent would be the contact who is flagged as the primary billing contact. Now, if you're using Epicor and have contacts set up, this is all familiar to you. There's nothing special about this, but we will later see that this is the email address that is going to be used for this example. The customer, as I mentioned a minute ago, is Dalton, just as the example we're going to be using. And we have an invoice here. We'll come back to it, but this is the invoice we're going to use as our example. Invoice 10194 for Dalton. Everything else what's required to set this up is done from this report style maintenance screen in Epicor. For those of you who've never worked with this, I'll show you where you find it in the menus under System Management, Reporting, Report Style. It's the same screen that's used for any type of, to create a special, Epicor uses the term style. It's really a version of the document. So if you, typically most customers, most Epicor users will create at least one customized style for each document. It probably has your logo on it, probably has other, maybe at least cosmetic changes to it. This is also how we set up, or the area that we use to set up this advanced printing function. Typically what you're going to do is start with the document that is closest to the one you want to email, and you may even set up a special format for that document, but not necessarily. You could use whatever you're using now to print, and however you're sending them out now, you could use that same document, go up to Actions, copy report style. And then I usually give this some kind of unique, these are the folders within the SSRS server environment that are going to be used to store the specific information for this style. So I usually just give it some kind of a unique folder name there. And then you just click copy. And initially, it gives it this generic description. And I'm just going to change that to something that's recognizable and a little bit more meaningful. So now we have our email test 2 style. And everything else we're going to do to get this set up is going to be done in this SSRS breaking routing sheet within the report style program. This is an optional module. I don't know that we've mentioned that before. It's something you do have to purchase separately, but it, certainly has a lot of value. When I go to that SSRS breaking routing sheet, I can do new, right up here under the file option, new SSRS breaking routing. Within this function is the concept of breaking, which, for example, in the case of an invoice, you may have a group of invoices, could be even hundreds of invoices. Many of those might be to the same customer. So you might want to break on the customer ID so that all of that customer's invoices are in the same email. On the other hand, you might want to break on the individual invoices so that each invoice goes in a separate email. The example we're doing today, the break table is going to be INVC head, which is the name Epicor gives to the accounts receivable invoice header, the main primary table for the AR invoices. And then I click design. Those of you who are familiar with the BPM function within Epicor 10, this will look very familiar. Some of the options are different, but the layout, the way it works, how you set it up is identical to the Epicor 10 BPM function. So anytime you go in here, the start node will automatically be there. And then we start building from there. It's a workflow concept where the system follows the path of the work of the nodes as you set them up within the workflow. So the first thing we're going to do is to add, and all I'm doing here, by the way, I'm just left clicking and dragging to populate this with the various nodes that we're going to use to set this up. When I hover over, in this case, the start node, and then click on the little arrow, whatever that is, and I drag it, the arrows on the other node, and I just connect it, and then I let go, and you can see there's an arrow now connecting those two. Very simple. When I select that break node, and this will be consistent, anytime I add a node and then select it, down here at the bottom of the screen will be the options for the actions related to that node. So in this case, the only thing I have to do is select, what am I breaking on? I've already told it I want to use the IMDC head cable, but now I have to tell it which specific field, and that's pretty obvious that it's going to be the invoice num. Epicor is pretty good about using fairly logical names for the key fields, so that's not too hard to figure out. For instance, if you were doing a purchase order, it would be PO num. If you were doing a quote, it would be quote num. So those things are fairly easy to figure out. Now, we know in this case that Dolphin has an email address attached to that contact. But if you're emailing out to a lot of different customers, there certainly could be situations where a customer does not have an email address attached. So the next thing we're going to do, so instead of just allowing it to error out when it doesn't find an email address, we're going to attach a condition. And I'm going to just go from this break node to the condition node, select the condition node, and then down here when I click the little sheet icon, it gives me the various options for conditions that you can create. And I'm going to use this one, which is the specified report field on any row is equal to the specified value. These words that are highlighted, you have to, in most cases, you have to actually insert, specify something to be included there. So in this case, we're going to go find the data field that contains the email address that we want to send this to. Now, sometimes this takes a little bit of poking around, depending on what type of data it is, whether it's a purchase order or a quote. I happen to know that the one we're looking for here happens to be, I'll open this up so you can see it a little better, happens to be calc cust email address. And these calc fields, by the way, are not database fields. They're logical fields that have been extracted from the database for this, this function. But you can think of them as being database fields. It's coming from, in this case, I think there's some logic behind it. It looks one place, and if it doesn't find it there, it looks somewhere else. But essentially, this is going to be coming from that contact that's flagged as the primary billing contact. So that's the email address for testing. On any row, I can leave that. That works the way it is. And then I'm going to say is more than. And this there's different ways you might do this, but this from experience, this works. If I just leave this blank, essentially I'm saying the condition is customer email address on any row is more than blank. So there's something, it's not really validating that it's an actual valid email address, but at least it's checking to see that there's something there rather than nothing. So now I have a true or false. If that's true, I'm going to send an email. If it's false, I'm going to do something else. The something else is called user action. And there really aren't any parameters for this. All this is saying is that if I don't find an email address in any of the logical places it should be, go ahead and do, versus if I click print preview, go ahead and print preview. If I click print, go ahead and print. So it's just going to go ahead and do whatever a selection I use to kick this print job off. So there's nothing more I need to do there. For the send email, if it's true, the condition is true. Now I select that and I have to design a template. So this is going to determine the actual information for this email, and we'll just walk through it. Now the name is not important. It's just something to designate it within Epicor. But now we're looking at things that will actually be in the email itself. Now, the from address, this might be the primary accounts receivable person within your organization. So if there are any replies sent, it's going to go to that person. It could be a special mailbox you set up just for that purpose. That's the from address. Most likely would be hard-coded. The two, this is where I click this insert button. And you'll see how I'm going to do this insert function a few times. And then this is where this function can actually go in and pull that email address. And so we're going to go find that same calc customer email, same one we used for the condition. Now, my recommendation, probably for any type of document that you're sending out, would be that you either CC or BCC a special mailbox that you would set up just for that purpose. So in other words, you're going to get a copy, you're going to have a mailbox in your system, not somebody's actual email for a person, but a unique special mailbox that's going to get a copy of every, in this case, every invoice that goes out. So that's going to become your internal record of what went out. In this case, I'm not going to populate those, but that would be my suggestion. This would be, this is text, however you want it to read, but I'm going to go ahead and insert, in this case, the invoice number. So that it appears in the subject. Oh, I got the name on it. Yeah, and that doesn't matter too much what you use. And then I can also specify the name of the attachment that goes out. So and again, I'm going to insert, same thing again. And find that invoice num again. And then this is whatever you want it to be. And I click OK. Now you could set this up. This isn't the only way to set it up. This is one pretty simple and logical way to do it. But, this is also where you could, I'm not going to do an actual demo of DocStar, but we could actually attach additional nodes, which would go and find the DocStar attachments and attach those to the email. So you could make this to get more sophisticated, particularly if you have the DocStar option. But for our demo today, I'm just going to leave it like that. Save and exit down at the bottom left. This is very important. Click Enable. And then do one final save. Now, if I go to the Invoice Tracker, and I click Print, select my email test 2. And in this case, I'm just going to use the print preview to kick it off. Give it a few seconds to process. I'm going to go to my Outlook. And there's my new email. With my text, I put in subject matter, Epicor IND numbers 10194. And here's the attached invoice. So that's the basic demonstration I've got planned for today, and I guess I'll open it up for any questions.
Hey, so Dave, let's just to be clear, we don't need DocStar for this, right? But it is a standalone module.
Right. Without DocStar just adds another level of capability. You can use it without DocStar, but DocStar adds that additional capability to pull attachments from either any, whether it could be parts, could be quotes, could be any entity within Epicor. You could have attachments that DocStar, they would be stored in DocStar, and then they could be attached to the email when it goes out.
So that's probably a webinar for another day.
Well, yeah, that's right. I mean, DocStar is a very powerful. Well, I mean, I think most people know it. It's a company that Epicor purchased. Maybe it's been almost 2 years now, but it's become the standard document management option for Epicor, and it's a very powerful additional function that you can purchase.
Okay, all right, Sue. If you could give me control, we'll get back onto the PowerPoint and we can start doing questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a reminder for everybody that if you have questions, you can go ahead and submit them still. Use the question functionality on your screen. Mark, you're back in control.
Okay.
All right, here we go. First question, guys. Do you have any options if I'm not on Epicor 10 yet?
Well, of course, advanced print management, which is the third-party tool that was the standard tool for many years, is still available for versions prior to Epicor 10. There are some other third-party tools that you can use also, off-the-shelf type products that if anyone's interested, I could make some recommendations on that. They're not as slick to set up as advanced printing, but there are other options for doing automatic emailing.
Okay. Next question. What is the report service that we should choose when setting up a new report?
The report service. Okay. Not sure what the gist of that question is. We're using the standard Epicor reporting function, which typically anybody with Epicor 10, all that whole infrastructure is already going to be set up, and all we're doing is using that standard Epicor print architecture that's already sitting in. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Okay. We'll move on, and if not, I'm sure we'll hear back. Do you need DocStar to attach anything, like maybe just the certifications, certificates?
I do not know. At some point, I was told, this goes back to previous versions, that with advanced print management, there was a way to do that. But I never saw anybody actually do that with advanced print management, with Alltech. It was, I think it required the full-blown version of Alltech, not the 8. Sometimes it was, I think, referred to as APM Plus by Epicor. In other words, you had to have not just the base level APM function. But as far as I know, the DocStar with advanced printing is other than what I just mentioned, is the only way to do attachments other than just the PDF of the document.
Okay. And we do have a clarification from Tony's question. He was referring to on the report style maintenance page, there's a section that asks for report service. That helps clarify what he's asking.
I don't mess with that at all. I guess that's the big, I don't touch it. So
Okay.
I'll plead ignorance.
Okay, no problem. Let me grab you another question here. In 10.1.400 and more recent versions, are we limited to just one contact email per customer supplier?
Well, that's a good, I'm assuming that question is, what if I want to send an email to multiple contacts? And there are some limitations on the data fields that are available for this function. So I would have to look at specific, theoretically you could set up, where you saw me set up the send email template, you could have multiples of those. I don't know whether you can use commas on the to address to send the same instance of the email to multiple contacts. I've never tried that. But if the data is available within the data that's exposed to the function, theoretically you could send it out to multiple contacts. But that would depend on whether or not Epicor has exposed that information into the advanced printing function.
Okay, next question.
I guess that's something go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just going to say we'd have to explore if there's a specific example, we'd have to explore it. I don't want to give an off-the-cuff answer, yes or no. I think theoretically, yes, it's possible to send it to multiple.
Okay. Can you insert data fields into the body of the email as well?
Yes. Same way. I just didn't bother to take time to do it.
All right. Hold on. Sorry, I'm going through these. I think there was a couple more I hadn't grabbed out of here yet. Is this something that I can implement myself, or do I require help?
I think it's fairly straightforward. There is, I believe, if you have the embedded education, I think there's a course on it right within the Epicor embedded education. It might be something that you would want 2W to help you set up the first one. It's pretty simple. I think a lot of people could probably, with just a little bit of help, they could probably set it up on their own.
Okay, and it looks like we've got just one more question here. Do you get a record of the success emails that you send out?
That's where I was recommending setting up a special email box just for that purpose, because it does not create a log. Now there might be a way to get it to do that, but not that I know of. I don't want to say it's not possible, but just in the standard setup like you saw me do, you don't get a log of successful email. That's why the simple answer would be to set up an email box and then you'll see them.
Okay, we got one more question that just came in. Any ability to specify a static attachment?
That's a good question. Not that I know of. I mean, with DocStar, for sure. That would be for sure a yes if you have DocStar. Without DocStar, we'd have to look into it. I wouldn't know off the top of my head how to do that without DocStar.
Sorry, we keep getting more questions. Hang with me. Is there anywhere on the Invoice Tracker or PO Tracker that shows the document was emailed?
Another good question. I think we'd have to look into that. I would hate to give it it's a very logical request, and it's something that would be nice. It would be nice to find a way to do that. I couldn't tell you offhand how to do it, but basically we'd have to update maybe a user-defined field, find a way to update that field as part of that workflow. So it's possible. We'd have to check into it.
Okay, no problem. Have you tried this with the new 10.2.300 documents with the logos embedded?
No, I have not. I wouldn't think it would make a difference, but I have not played with the 10.2.300 yet. I'm waiting. What I'm using for my demo is what Epicor calls their sales image, which is the same sample data that all the sales engineers use at Epicor. And last time I checked, the 300 sales image wasn't available yet, but should be soon.
Okay, I think that we got them all. For anybody that asked a question that maybe we didn't give great clarification, or maybe Dave needs to look into it, I will pull your contact information from your registration, and we will get back to you hopefully shortly with maybe some more information for you. So that's all that we have for today. I appreciate everyone joining us. Thanks for your time. If you have any additional questions or comments, both Mark and Dave's information is up on the screen. Give them a call, shoot them a note. Anything is welcome. So thanks everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.